there were several changes in the February patch for Back 4 Blood that were not in the patch notes. And in this video, we're going to specifically focus on some of those changes and what they mean for the game and some of the explanations that have come out and been discovered since then, because there's quite a bit of drama going on here, and I'm kind of a fan. So one of the things you're going to see right away, actually a couple of them, one was Gloom, 2 is Amped Up. Now Gloom did not change, but I'll show you what it did change. Or also, another thing is that utility scav stock went straight up. So let's talk about all these at once. So something you'll notice right away, if you're paying attention, is the flashlight looks very different.
Well, this is
I don't know what
this was a bad
exactly they did to the flashlight, but it feels like it's more yellow and more blown out. I'm not a fan of the change. I don't know why it happened, but it definitely is different. Anybody else notice it? I'm noticing it. Everybody I've been talking to is like, oh god, whenever they try to look at it. Almost, I can't tell if it's more narrow either, but the flashlight's definitely different. And it does affect me when I'm trying to play now. Another thing that people are talking about is the increased amount of specials and whether or not that's even a thing. So here is what I can tell you about the special spawns. We went ahead and we counted, and we tried to figure out what was going on and whether or not people are just overreacting on Reddit, because that's kind of what Reddit's there for half the time. And what we came to kind of discover was that, yes, there is actually more things spawning. One of the things I'm hearing is, well, there's just a constant stream of them and I can't keep up with them. I didn't notice that when I was playing with people. It doesn't feel like necessarily a constant stream. I think whether or not it feels like a constant stream probably has a lot to do with how effective you or your team is at taking specials out. And that's something that you can try to figure out for yourself. What we did do, though, was we actually counted them. And on average, it seemed as though there was 20 to 30% more specials per level. So to quantify that, how much does that mean? Well, if there was typically 10 specials on the level, now you have 12 or 13. And if on average there was 20 specials on a level, what that means is it's going to climb up to something like 24 to 26-ish. So that is a marked increase. That is a lot more specials, and if you have trouble dealing with them, you're probably going to notice it. Now, personally, I'm a fan of more specials in the game. I think that makes it a little bit more fun. I'm sure people's opinions are going to vary a lot based on how well they do in the game right now, but I like the idea of just a little bit more specials than there was before. But now, actually, on the topic of things that I am not sure are necessarily accurate, you see how this Molotov dropped here? This dropped because I'm Hoffman, and it says it's a 1% chance to drop an offensive item, but it kind of feels like way more than 1%. If anything, it feels like anything has a 1% chance to drop at any time, and all of them together, I don't know how many different offensive items there are, is what the actual total is. Now, one thing that was in the patch notes, but there's a lot of drama around it, and I want to talk about it, is this card right here, Amped Up. So anytime a horde is triggered, your team gains 25 temporary health. Uh-oh, somebody's getting eaten. So if I trigger this here, what you'll see is everybody on the team is going to get some temp health. Ta-da! Now, in my opinion, the way it's currently set up is a little busted. Because what you can do is multiple people can run Amped Up. And for every person that runs Amped Up, that's an additional 25 health. Temporary health, by the way. So if 4 people are running Amped Up, what you can have is 100 temp HP just given to you anytime a horde is triggered. And to be clear, that's like any horde. That's a sleeper horde, that's a reeker horde, that's a story horde, that's a timed horde, that's a I shot the birds horde, or I shot the door, or I shot the police car. So what this kind of does is it gives you infinite HP with little consequence. Now, in my mind, part of what the problem is that it's temporary health. And temporary health just ignores all the rules. Yeah, sure, it goes ahead and trickles down over time, but who cares? Because there are plenty of opportunities to hit hordes in this game. So you can just keep out healing everything that's happening. So in my mind, there's a few different ways that can handle it. One is to nerf just the temp health a little bit, but I think something that might make a little bit more sense and make it more engaging is no temp health at all. Screw the temp health side of it and just make it regular health. That way, you are still getting a decent heal anytime something happens, but it's also at the same time kind of keeping track of how you've been performing. Because if you're just eating it all the time and getting absolutely destroyed and then having temp health carry you through, you don't have to really feel the consequences of the trauma that you've been accumulating. Where if it's regular health, you have to kind of deal with the fact that you've been accumulating trauma. So if I'm down to 40 HP left, if I can heal 100, well, I'm still only going to go up to 40. But if it's temporary health, then we can still go ahead and just go beyond that 40 limit. And as you can see here, like, I left this open a little bit so we can kind of see how much things were spawning. And we might get a little bit of a trickle here, but this is normal because of what roamers typically do. So they're coming from somewhere, but it doesn't feel egregious. I've played quite a few hours since the patch, and I'm really not getting this, oh my god, I can't breathe kind of feel. And let me know what you guys think, what you think of Amped Up right now, if you think it's awesome, if you think it's way too strong, if you think something in the middle. Again, my mind kind of shifts towards, if it heals regular health, at least there's consequence. And by the way, something else to mention about temporary health is that it does block trauma. So that's another huge perk to what Amped Up is doing. If you have temporary health, you don't get trauma, like I said. So if you can get temporary health anytime you want by hitting a horde, you basically have a free trauma shield on top of the fact that you could add cards in like Numb that benefit off of temporary health. So let's talk about what is by far one of the biggest changes of this patch. Like, it's not even close, and it wasn't mentioned at all in the patch notes. So one of the big changes was alarmed doors. You hear beeping, right? Means it's still alarmed. Now, what you could do with alarm doors in the past is you could shoot around the door. That would make noise, which would attract a Ridden. And if a Ridden would hit the door, that would disarm the alarm, and that's how you would get through it. So there was kind of a mini game in that sense. Now what happens, and apparently this is on purpose. This is the crazy part to me. I thought this was a bug. Apparently this is on purpose. So you see me shooting around the door, right? Well, take a look. Still hitting the door, but apparently doesn't do damage to it. So it's kind of silly because they'll still damage regular doors, but they won't damage alarm doors. Now, what do you do about it now? Let's talk about actual solutions here before we get into all the other stuff about why things are the way they are. One of the things you do now is just prioritize toolkits, because you can still toolkit through the door, right? So what you have to do now is either bring Carly or pray to the utility scavenger overlords and hope that some toolkits drop. And lucky me, on this map, I bought a toolkit, but it does make it happen where things like toolkits will spawn just about anywhere on the map, which can be really, really helpful. But the other weird part is that sometimes they will break down the door. So it seems like some mutations can break through these doors. Another way to make it so that the Ridden will break through the door without you triggering the alarm is if you already have a different horde going on. The Ridden will then break through the alarm door. So it seems like it's in a really weird spot. But the part that, to me, that's so bizarre is that it's bigger than just being a bug, because it's apparently not a bug. So allow me to show you what I mean about how this is apparently intentional. So we're on Reddit here, and we have Evil Jet's post here, one of the mods in the Reddit, or in the subreddit. And what you'll see here is a chain of comments about what's going on. A little bit of an explanation. And I'm going to trust that Evil Jet has this displayed about as honestly as you can, so we can get a real full story about it. And what you'll see here is initially it was being investigated. Common Ridden not breaking alarm doors is under investigation this time. Okay, makes sense, because it kind of sounds like a bug. Because this has been a fundamental way to play the game since it's been out, is have Ridden break down doors. Now, what we see next, though, is that it was supposed to ship, apparently, with a card that helps with alarms in some way. But that card got pushed back, and they didn't have time to revert the door change. So what that means is something didn't make it by the deadline, but apparently the door thing did. And by the time the deadline hit, we couldn't pull it back out. So the solution to the problem didn't go in, but the problem went in. Now, this is the really interesting part, is that, and the part that I feel like I'm not really understanding fully, because there has to be more to what's going on here. So you'll see here is this Ridden change is by design. Ridden will no longer deal damage to alarm doors from sensing players on the other side, but they can if there's an active horde, which is what we just talked about. And then from the lead designer here, we know that alarm doors are a pain point for players, so we created a card that would make them easier to deal with. Unfortunately, that card was pushed to the next update, and the change we made remained in the build. So again, I'm really wanting to create a idea that there is more to this than surface level, oh, make a problem and then fix it with a card. Because so much of how this game has been balanced and addressed is they never want you to feel like you have to pick a card. But currently, with the way this looks, is it sure sounds like you need to pick a card in order to deal with alarm doors. I mean, you could use things like toolkits, but that gets really expensive. Or you could use things like utility scavenger, but then you're back in the same boat of having to pick a card. So to me, it feels like there's probably something bigger going on that we don't know that might be coming out in the future. That's my guess. I just can't fathom why the solution to something that is such a big part of the game would be a card, because it turns into a must pick, because alarm doors are everywhere. So if this is really what it is, where we made this change so that you have to pick this card, I disagree with that idea. I also don't feel like that's what's going on, because a lot of the people who work there, very smart people. It's not like they don't know what they're doing. So there's probably something bigger going on. There's a bigger picture that I don't think we just have the answers for yet, because we're probably not allowed to hear them yet. And now another thing you might be wondering is, how in the heck does this actually get through into the patch and this thing is just not addressed? In my mind, there's a couple different ways to think about it. One, yes, it should all just work. It should just all be together. Everything's in sync. Everybody's communicating. Everything's perfect. We shouldn't have these really weird bugs that come in through a patch, or I guess changes that don't line up properly within a patch. I agree with you. However, I do also know that this game is big and there's a lot of different people that work on a lot of different things. So it would not surprise me if things get through the cracks sometimes. And since we live in a social media world, it's very easy to point those things out very loud and very easily. So something that might have snuck by somehow in testing, or in someone's specific version of testing, because there's probably different branches of the game, right? Different iterations of the game that are all happening at the same time, and people might be testing on different builds and yada, yada, yada. So something might be happening in one version and not in the other, and they tested this at this time and this at that time. Like, there's a bunch of different moving parts that all happen at the same time. So my point that I'm trying to make is, yes, it shouldn't have problems, but I think we can be human about it and understand that it happens and it's okay. And if it really bothers you that much, then you know, it's a product and you don't necessarily have to spend your time with the game. That's kind of where I'm at with it. But I really want to stress that it makes sense that sometimes things just happen. I'm sure at your job, things just happen. So that's personally where I'm at with it, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Another thing that changed in this patch is these military ridden. So in the December update, something happened where these guys couldn't be knocked back at all by anything. Knock their helmet off, who cares? And I actually really like that change, but instead they went ahead and they fixed them so you can knock them back again. So I'm kind of sad. I really liked that they were so indestructible or so unstumbleable, but now they're back to normal. I hope they bring it back. I hope they make it so that the military ridden can't be knocked back, because it's just a whole new variation on them then. So there's so many times where you have to aim up to hit them in the head, and you have to kill them, and you have to address them. Whereas so many of the other ridden, you can just punch them and then manage them that way. It's just a totally different way to spice things up. Now let's go through a few of the other changes that accidentally slipped by and did not make it into the patch notes. One of which here is silver bullets. So silver bullets used to do 10% bullet damage. Now it says it does 7.5%. However, people are saying it still does 10% bullet damage, and this is just a text error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test that for you real quick so we can all see it. And the way we're going to test this is we're going to pick up an M1A because it does a lot of damage, so we can actually see a little bit of variance in the numbers. And we'll get a number here. I have knowledge, just power on so we can see how much damage we do. And the damage we do to a target here is 38, right? So that should either go up by 3.8 or by whatever 7.5% is. So let's go see. All right, so now I have just power and silver bullets on. Let's go ahead and hit something in the tummy and see if it changes. It went up to 40.9. Oh, that's definitely actually only 7.5%. The whole text error thing, that is totally a lie. Whoever told me that will beat you up. Here, 38 times 1.075 is 40.9, I'm assuming, right? Yep, there you go. So yeah, it actually did get debuffed. It's not a text error. It actually did get debuffed. Oh, this is by far one of my favorite changes that they didn't tell anybody about in the patch notes. And I'm so glad they didn't, because it's just gonna... It's really gonna catch some people off guard. One of the things they changed, if you take a close look, is they changed some of the spots of the sleeper locations throughout all the maps. So if you got used to where the sleepers could spawn, get ready. It's a whole new video game because they changed them, and they changed a bunch of them. There'll be one that spawns right here sometimes too. And on a bunch of different maps, you'll notice this. So I love the change. I think it keeps things a little fresh. And a little bit more of an explanation on the sleepers. Sleepers aren't set in stone in certain areas. They can go in many, many different places as long as it's flat. But somebody must have tinkled with something to make it so that there's more locations that they're looking to be in, which is kind of funny. One other really big thing that I've heard of, but I've not seen it yet. That's why I like to do videos like these where I actually test things, because when I was in my patch videos, like, I heard that people were saying there's a text error on the silver bullets. So I'm glad I actually tested it here. But I heard that the Sound of Thunder is now spawning multiple ogres. And if you don't know what the Sound of Thunder is, it is the end of Act 1. So that level where you have the howitzer and you have to shoot it at the mine over and over again, and eventually it spawns an ogre on higher difficulties. Well, apparently it is spawning more ogres than just one on Nightmare and stuff. So that sounds like an oopsie poopsie. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it's happening. And speaking of another thing that I heard is happening, but I haven't tested it yet, is the whole idea that T5 crates are automatically opened on the end of Act 3, which is Body Dump. Now, I have heard, but I have not seen, you guys let me know in the comments down below, that on Nightmare, they're still locked, but on Veteran, they're not. So, interesting. Don't know if that's intended or what's going on with that. But again, I haven't seen it. It's just what I heard. So this is some of the things in my mind that are kind of the highlights of the February patch that weren't in the patch notes. I'm sure there's other things. I'm sure you can look on Reddit and find a bunch of other stuff. But these are the things that really stuck out to me, and the things that I got a little bit more information on than when I initially read the patch notes in that first video. So let me know what you guys think about everything. I'm very curious about where you're at with the game right now. I like that there's a little bit more going on in terms of specials. The alarm door logic thing is a little weird, but I really believe there's a bigger picture that we don't quite know about yet. And ultimately, if you're having trouble with alarm doors, just throw amped up on anyway, because it's absolutely broken. So if you feel like you're getting your butt whooped, just either put on amped up or maybe watch some other SwingPoynt videos to learn a little bit more about how to deal with some of the things in the game. Anywho, I'm going to go. Thank you guys. We stream just about every single night. Twitch.tv/SwingPoynt. Links in the description, also the top comment. Please consider subscribing if you found this video helpful at all, and I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.